You know how they tell you to bend your knees when lifting heavy objects? You're going to need that advice, guys, because we're about to drop some knowledge, and you folks are going to pick it up for the next hour. It's this bracketology in the northern region. We have all the district brackets. We're going to show you who advanced from what districts in basketball and who's going to the northern region finals. Now, we're in semifinals just now, but folks, we're the experts, so we're just going to tell you who's going to play this thing. I'm your host, BJ Kubaroulis of the Connection Newspapers, joined by Paul Frummelt and John Marcario of the Connection Newspapers. Welcome to my family, John. And just folks, we have an action-packed show tonight. We're also going to tell you region champions of wrestling. But before we do all that, we want to thank the folks that make this show possible. And of course, we're talking about our underwriters. Thanks to our teammates, CCI Screen Printing, 703-978-0257. And a Quality Care Ford Service Center, which service all makes and models at 703-383-6299. Well, folks, before we break right into this first half of the show where we're going to talk about all the girls' basketball action in the northern region, we're going to show you, like we mentioned, the girls' Concord, Liberty, Patriot, and National. And then we're going to give you a regional bracket to show you who has advanced all the way into the region semifinals, which will be played on Thursday at George Mason University. We're going to throw you a little wrestling love. Paul Frummelt, who won the Northern Region Wrestling Championships?
Taking place this weekend, starting out at 103, Roman Perryman, a freshman from Robinson, winning. At 119, Enrique Camacho, the former Dream Crusher, won the first region title for Chantilly since 1995.
Right there at 119, Enrique Camacho. Last year, Paul, they named him the Dream Crusher because he was a low seed coming up and knocking all these big seeds out. And right now, this year, though, you said former Dream Crusher because he came in as a #1 seed.
Exactly. You can also see Tyler and Joel Hutchins, the brothers from Westfield, at 125 and 135, each winning region titles. It's the second in a row for Joel. Paul Grinups, also from Westfield, at 145, won a region title. You can see there, 4 wrestlers from Langley, the team that came in first in the Northern Region Wrestling Tournament. Four wrestlers from Langley getting a title. Matt Jones from Robinson won his 4th straight region title. He's also the defending state champion at 171. And Danny Bryant from Lake Braddock winning for the big boys.
And you mentioned 4 guys from Langley winning a region title. That was the first region title in school history for the Saxons for wrestling, a program that has been dominant in its district. 7 district titles under Coach John Bellier in the Liberty District. That's your wrestling fix, folks. For more, you can check the Connection Newspapers website. But right now, we're breaking right into our bracketology episode. We're going to give you folks at home all the Northern Region basketball knowledge. We're going to start with girls first. We're going to be joined by Oakton coach Fred Priester in a minute, who's going to drop the knowledge on the Oakton girls. They have a record breaker in their program. We'll show you a lot about that. And in the second half of our show, we're going to talk all about boys basketball and upsets galore and Cinderellas all around the Northern Region. Let's jump, guys, right into the Liberty District girls bracket. As we mentioned before, we're going to do this by district. Marshall right there in orange. The girls win back-to-back Liberty District titles, 2nd year in a row that they take out Madison in that final. You see McLean, first time they've won in the Liberty District tournament since '93. Coach Mike O'Brien doing a heck of a job over for the Highlanders. You see Stonebridge, Paul, you got a girl there, just broke the 1,000-point mark, and Marianne Bell.
Definitely.
And Madison, all juniors. We're going to see what they did later in the Northern Region tournament. They'll be coming back strong next year, guys. And as we look at that bracket, let's talk a little bit about Marshall, John. This is a program that is on the up. Okay, they've come back from some years of torment in the Liberty District, for a lack of better words. And in the last 7 years under Coach Noelle Klippenstein, she's really made that program really, really competitive. And of course, Liberty District Players of the Year have been housed there for the last 2 years in Amanda Brown and now Nicole Harrison.
Now, you mentioned Nicole Harrison. She's truly the leader of that team. In the championship game, I saw them for the 2nd time this year. They seem to have a switch that they can turn on and off. Against Madison, they were down 10-4 with about 4 minutes to go in the first quarter. Noelle calmly called a timeout, brought her team over, said, okay, we're going to switch from the man-to-man that we're playing to zone. boom, 25-4 run from the end of the first quarter all the way to the second quarter, took a commanding 29-14 lead going to halftime, and just never looked back. Madison could not sustain a run at all. When you talk to Nicole Harrison after the game, I said, were you worried at all? She goes, no, I knew we were going to win the game. That's a confident group of kids that they have over there.
And talking a little bit about Marshall breaking through in the semifinal of the district, Paul, they played against Stonebridge, a team that houses a girl that may have some collegiate potential.
Well, Marianne Bell scored in the region in the tournament, scored her 1,000th point, the first 1,000-point getter in girls basketball history at Stonebridge. And Marianne Bell recently disclosed that she plans to walk on to the Brigham Young University basketball team. She's planning on going there, and she's talked to the program. She didn't get a scholarship, but she plans to walk on and try to play hoops like her mother did at Brigham Young University.
A big Mormon family, and of course that plays a lot into those decisions. I think she was getting some other looks from some other colleges, and a girl that's also gotten some looks from some other colleges when you talk about Liberty District girls basketball is Ashley Cole. She just passed the 1,000-point mark as well in the region tournament, as we'll get to that bracket eventually. But Ashley Cole is a girl who is the all-time leading scorer in the history of McLean's girls basketball program. And staying in the girls basketball, let's move right into that Patriot District, John. The Patriot District has been one that has been putting out some potential region bracket busters, as we'll see later. But let's show the folks at home the Patriot Girls District bracket.
The Patriot Girls District has been a hotly contested district all season long. The top-seeded Lee Lancers had no problem with West Potomac in their first-round game, beating them by almost 30 points. T.C. Williams, who started surging of late, we'll talk about them, had no problems with Annandale as well. South County beat Lake Braddock in their first ever district tournament victory over there. Congratulations to the Stallions and Coach Jason Grubb over there. And West Springfield easily defeated Hayfield by 26. In the second round, T.C. Williams upset Lee to advance to the finals. They beat them by 12 points. So T.C. really starting to put things together at the right time. South County in the semis for the third time this year could not beat West Springfield, falling to the Spartans 58-48. And in the championship game, T.C. Williams goes back-to-back, defeating West Springfield 53-43. In that game, head coach Billy Gibson was tossed, and for the Spartans, Triana Harris did not play. BJ, do you think Gibson not being there for the Spartans hampered their efforts?
Well, you know, I think Gibson is a good enough coach and has been around for long enough to know where the line is. And obviously, the officials feel that he crossed the line, and they had to toss him. I think that being that it was a 53-43 game, had Coach Gibson stuck around, maybe we wouldn't be talking about T.C. Williams right now in the region tournament. Maybe we'd be talking more about West Springfield girls, but they still have some damage to do, I guess. But I think Coach Billy Gibson probably knew where the line was. I think that was going to be a tough game for them anyway, John, but I think maybe it hurt the team in the long run.
He got tossed in the second quarter. They struggled for over the next 2 or 3 minutes to score, couldn't put together much offense. T.C. Williams pulled away in the third quarter with a 13-0 spurt, and the game was just never close after that.
And I think that we showed you the bracket, folks, for the Patriot District girls. We had Lake Braddock mentioned there in the final, but it was actually West Springfield in the final. The TC did play Lake Braddock on the boys' side. We're going to get to the boys in the second half of our bracket buster show tonight, folks. But sticking in this Patriot District for girls, John, so many teams busting into the northern region. Obviously, they take 4 teams from each region, or from each district into the region, but so many contenders in Lee, TC, and West Springfield. Stay tuned, folks. We're going to talk all about these teams when we get to our region bracket. Before we do that, let's break into the Concord District, and soon enough, Coach Fred Priester is going to be joining us from Oakton to tell us all about his record breaker and how far those Cougars can take it in the Northern Region Tournament, guys. Paul, why don't you walk us through the Concord District Tournament?
Okay, as you can see here, Oakton, the #1 seed, had a first-round bye, went all the way to the district final. You see Westfield, they're #2. They first took on Fairfax and then met Chantilly to make it to the final. One thing to note in the quarterfinals is Chantilly topping Centerville, a team that had beat Chantilly twice in the regular season. A big win for Chantilly. Took on Westfield, ended up falling to Westfield. Robinson and Herndon in the quarterfinal. Herndon went ahead and beat Robinson to make it to the semifinals, only to fall to Oakton. Oakton and Westfield in the finals, with Jasmine Thomas scoring 29 points, which happened to be the amount of points that Westfield actually scored. So Westfield tied Jasmine Thomas, but Oakton went ahead and won 46-29. Now, BJ, was there any doubt that Jasmine Thomas was going to, and the Oakton Cougars were going to win the Concord District in her senior year?
Well, it's an interesting statistic, and it's an interesting question, because the one team that has been able to contend with Oakton has been Westfield. Jasmine Thomas has led that team now to a 97-9 record in 4 years overall. In the district, though, against Concord District opponents, Oakton is 51-3 against the Concord District. Where do you think the 3 losses came from?
I'm going to guess the Bulldogs.
Right. Westfield has been the one team that's been able to break Oakton at times. So going into that game, you wonder, are they going to be able to break through this time? Jasmine Thomas did not leave that up to question. She came out and scored the first 14 points in a 15-5 run to start the first quarter. She finished, as you said, with 29 points. And as we mentioned, Jasmine recently broke a record. We've chronicled it on this show. We want to show you what Jasmine was able to do here in the first round of the region tournament. Jasmine Thomas was chasing former Madison coach Pat Deegan's player in Katie Smirka Duffy, who was the second all-time leading scorer in the history of the state in girls, and overall the #1 scorer in the history of the Northern Region. Jasmine Thomas was able to break that record, and here it is. As you can see, she climbed up the list, 2,492 points. She scored her 2,467th point in the first round of the Northern Region, ahead of the pace that she was planned to do it by our estimation. So she passes Katie Smirka Duffy, 96 grad of Madison, played under Westfield coach Pat Deegan, and Jasmine is now the leading scorer in the history of this Northern Region, a storied region basketball-wise, passes all kinds of people, as you can see, state-wise. A little bit out of range of Lakeisha Frett, who just ran wild at Phoebus in '93. So you have a girl like this, Paul, scores 29 points, ties Westfield on her own. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the region tournament.
Well, it's definitely, and what you see here, you mentioned those 3 losses to Westfield. Well, Westfield had 3 losses in the district this year, and guess who those were from?
Right.
Oakton. They've only lost to Oakton in the Concord district, so it's a given that they were going to meet Oakton in the finals, but they just didn't have a good enough showing to top Oakton.
In just a minute here, folks, we're going to be joined by Oakton coach Fred Priester, who's going to give us the insight on this Concord district and also heading into the region tournament, John.
The region tournament for the girls?
Right, the region tournament for the girls. Coach Fred Priester is going to be coming on. He's going to give us a little bit of insight about Jasmine taking on who could potentially be Dorena Campbell coming from Edison. If they were both to win their semifinal matchups, they would take each other on.
That would be the dream matchup that everybody in the Northern Region girls side has probably been looking at. If you pit 2 players such as Jasmine and Dorena, 2 storied programs over the last couple of years, such as Edison and Oakton, together, you could have a great showing there at the Patriot Center. Edison has just completely been rolling people. Oakton had a little bit of stumbling block against Westfield. I say stumbling block just because when you compare it to Edison winning games by 60, 70
Right.
points, Oakton didn't quite win by 60 or 70 points. It's just both those teams have a game that they might have to play, that they have to win in the regionals, but it could be a fun one.
And as we mentioned, that dream matchup, and we'll get to preview that when we get to our Northern Region bracket busting time, that is a matchup that has never happened. Jasmine Thomas headed to Duke University, #3 recruit in the entire country, and Dorena headed to UCLA. They've never played each other at the high school level. They used to play together on the Fairfax Stars that won a national championship at the AAU level, and then later played against each other at the AAU level once. But they've never played against each other at the high school level. And this year, being that the girls headlined the region tournament at a 9 o'clock time slot, I think that would be a bigger draw than any boys game that this region would have to offer. Well, speaking of what this region would have to offer, Coach Fred Priester has offered this region so much for so long in his coaching. He's been around, seems like forever. Coach, thanks for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report.
Good to be here, BJ.
Hey, thanks for staying awake for us tonight. I know it's been a long week for you, and you've been through a whole lot, but thanks for making time for us here. Coach, want to jump right into it. I was at the Concord District Finals, the Fairfax Sports Network's Game of the Week. Jasmine Thomas, as I talked to you after the game, you said she comes to play every game, but it seemed like she just had another notch that night.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, you and I have talked in the past about how consistent she's been, that if you look at her numbers across the board for for all 4 years. It seems like every night you can count on her for 20 and then some combination of rebounds, assists, and steals to equal another 20. So, but then there's those nights when you can just tell that she's just lit up.
Right.
Now, in that game, she took off and really established the entire tempo of the game, established that we were going to be aggressive and that we were going to be the team that was going to be a front runner in that game. I know I saw it mentioned that she went on, several minutes after that where she didn't score. Well, that's Jasmine trying to get other people involved. But sometimes she just grabs the throttle and says, "We're going." And when she does that, she's as good as there is.
Now, Coach, whenever we talk about Oakton in your squad, we obviously talk about Jasmine, and rightfully so, but I had a chance to watch your team against Chantilly, and Ashley Abed was a player that really, really impressed me. What does she bring to this team?
Oh, she's so versatile, and she's so strong. In other years with maybe different personnel, or had Alex been able to stay healthy this year, Ashley could have demonstrated a lot of very good skills away from the basket. But, part of any team is someone being willing to sacrifice, and she sacrificed the enjoyment she gets out of that to go in and just muck it up on the boards and do that tough work. And at 5'9", it is tough work. But defensively, I saw something that I wish some other people could have seen around here, and that is when she went up against the 6'6" All-American kid from Pius X in Atlanta, Georgia, and totally outplayed her when we upset them in our Christmas tournament. And she came back, and her entire face was black and blue from the elbows. And not to say that the girl was a dirty player, but when you're 5'9", that's about where the elbows go when you're guarding somebody that's 6'6". And we just she's just built on that. And then she was the main defender on Josephine McLean, who's a very good player from Westfield, and held her to nothing in the district final. Wow. And then the other night, I guess that was last night. Nights are starting to run together here. Last night, I believe it was, that she was the main defender on Jay Babineau, a great inside player from Lee. And again, Jay was scoreless for the game. So Ashley just brings a toughness, a physicality. I think she wore Jay down last night. And plus she has amazing agility for a girl, that's her size.
Mm-hmm. Well, Coach, you guys are heading into the Patriot Center yet another time over at George Mason University, and I know you don't want to overlook a team like Marshall, a team that has a great amount of balance with the Player of the Year out of the Liberty District, Nicole Harrison, and 2 6'2" forwards. I know that you know them. I know that you coached some of them in your summer leagues, but you also could potentially take on Edison in what would be, I think, probably the biggest draw of a girls' region final in potentially maybe the history of the region if Jasmine and Dorina were to take on each other. What's that like, knowing that behind a Marshall, if you were to advance that far, there is that dream matchup?
Well, I think that, and you're right, I'm not thinking there. People said, where do you play Marshall? Where do you play Edison? I said, well, I guess I will have to wait until we play Edison, I just got to say, Marshall presents us with problems in terms of their size, and Nicole is having a very good year. Noelle Klippenstein's done a great job coaching them. They're playing with a lot of confidence, and certainly in our meetings today, we talked to the kids about making sure that we keep our focus on the tree that's right in front of us.
Right.
But if we want to take a look ahead, certainly it would be a matchup that a lot of people would be excited about. I got to tell you straight up, they're loaded.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're loaded. They've scored 100 points 7 or 8 times. I jokingly say, I don't know if we could score 100 points against air. So, I think that it will be the kind of matchup, if it were to happen, that will spark imagination and interest. It remains to be seen if we have the what it takes to compete with them. Certainly, our kids will bring everything they have, and we'll have to just wait and see how it goes. But again, let's work on the tree that's right in front of us. Marshall is going to be a very big challenge for us tomorrow, and that's where we're putting all our focus right now.
And they got 2 6-foot trees that are going to be right in the paint as well, Coach.
Exactly.
And Al-Shingeti and Message, 2 players that are absolutely fantastic. So we know you got your work cut out for you, and we'll be seeing you at the Patriot Center. Thanks for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report, Coach. Good luck.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
All
Coach.
right.
Thank you, Coach.
Okay, guys, so Coach Fred Priester right there. I think Oakton has one of the toughest roads in the region tournament. We're going to get a chance to show you folks at home that region tournament bracket. But before we do, we want to break into that national district because that's a district that has produced a team like an Edison, which has been ranked all up and down the USA Today rankings this season. John, why don't you take us into the national district girls bracket and show us who's coming out of there?
Here's all you need to know about the National District, and I'll go through it. It's Edison's game, and everybody else is just playing for seconds. In their 3 wins, as you can see, they won the title. They beat Washington Lee in the first round 120-25. In the semifinals, they beat Mount Vernon 100-42. And in their finals, playing the team that's the second best team in the National District, they beat them 87-46. That is Yorktown. They have truly dominated the National District all year long.
Okay, folks, so for the next couple of minutes here, before we break, we're going to run through this Northern Region bracket. Let's just jump right into this Northern Region bracket, and we're going to show you the top half of the girls' bracket. As we break in, Oakton, as we mentioned earlier, rocked through Stonebridge and just had a 2-point lead over Lee last night, takes out the Lancers, and a great season those Lancers have had, and they're going to move into the semifinals against Marshall, which was also another #1 seed, not a dark horse as we've been calling them this season. They don't accept that role. They're not an underdog, and they pass Billy Gibson's West Springfield Spartans. Coach served a 1-game suspension against Yorktown and then came back for that second-round game. Marshall squeezes by and gets to the semifinals at the Patriot Center against Oakton. That is going to be a heck of a matchup. Let's move into the second half or bottom half of our bracket. T.C. Williams, the story there, guys. Tierra Ruffin-Pratt comes back, takes her team from a #4 seed in the Patriot District Tournament and rocks them all the way into the semifinals where they're going to run into Darina Campbell, another dream matchup. Coach Fred Priester mentioned it's going to spark imagination when Darina and Jasmine go against each other in what could be a great final. But right now, there's a dream matchup in Darina versus Tierra. Tierra Ruffin-Pratt helping those girls get by Westfield. Edison passes by Madison. Madison with all the juniors coming back strong next season. Guys, in the semifinals, before we go to break here, talk a little bit about who you think's coming out of these 2 games.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with you a little bit. You called the TC Edison a dream matchup. It's got the name potential, but last year Edison beat the exact same TC team by 17 points. Tamonica Brackens shut down Tierra Ruffin-Pratt. Edison will do the exact same against TC and probably win that game by what they've been winning other games by 25 to 30-plus points.
All right, Paul, you've seen Oakton. Tell us a little bit about what you think Oakton has potential to do.
Well, definitely Oakton is a team that can make their way to Edison if Edison does advance into the finals. What I'm seeing from Oakton is I mentioned Ashley Abed. To hold Josephine McLean from Westfield to no points, it's amazing. I mean, Josephine McLean must have 3-4 inches on Ashley, and she is a blue-collar, hard worker in the post, and she really, really impresses me.
Well, you know, it was Ashley and also a team defense that really guarded the middle. That what they did was they didn't want to let McLean beat them, so they threw everybody in the middle, and it was hard for McLean. They just gave her a tough night, and Coach Pat Deegan took responsibility for that loss, wouldn't put it on Josephine. She played her butt off and just said that the coaches didn't make the adjustments to put her in a better position to score. Speaking of score, folks, we're going to score some more points with our viewers at home when we come back from this break. Up next, the Northern Region for boys. Who's the upset? Who got upset? Who's the Cinderella? Come on back. We're going to talk with a coach of a Cinderella team. Try to guess who it is on this break. Thanks for joining us on the Fairfax Sports Report. Come on back for the second half of the show. Welcome back to the Fairfax Sports Report. We're here for the second half of this Northern Region Bracket Bonanza Buster Bracket, something funny about bracket. Bracketology, we'll just call it, guys. We've got so much to talk about the Northern Region boys, and we're going to do this the same way we did the girls. We're going to run right through each district. We're going to show you folks at home who was able to do what, who was able to emerge from their district, and we're going to show you a regional bracket and keep you up to date with all the hot games, the Cinderellas, the upsets, as we say. The boys has been an interesting side of the region, guys. Let's jump right into this thing. For the Liberty District, the story this year has been Woodson and South Lakes. Here, for those of you that watch the Fairfax Sports Report, my good friend John Marcario, I will give him the honor of reading this Liberty District bracket because he did correctly call who would win this district tournament.
Woodson won their first round game against Jefferson, as did Madison beating McLean. Woodson and Madison advanced to the semifinals. In the bottom half of the bracket, the Langley Saxons and Ryan Davenport beat Stonebridge, and South Lakes beat Marshall. Now, here in the semis is where it gets a little bit interesting. Woodson advanced to the finals, beating Madison, and Langley pulled off what I consider a big upset in the Northern Region against South Lakes in what was Wendell Bird's last home game as their head coach. And in the finals there, BJ, I'll let you read me what the champion name is.
It looks like Woodson beat up on Langley, and they did get by for that championship. Langley on the dream season, but Coach Doug Craig over at Woodson and Liberty District Player of the Year, Zach Wilmot, John, a team that you got a chance to cover a whole bunch this year, was really the story when all was said and done with the Liberty District.
Wilmot played a big part in them running the table, but Stevie Silverthorne was the MVP of the tournament. He had 28 points in their semifinals against Madison. He had 13 points in the championship game against Langley. He completely controlled the tempo of both games. In that game against Madison, Woodson jumped out to a big 34-21 lead, had to hang on late. Madison had two chances at the end to either take the lead or tie the game in the last 30 seconds. Missed both shots, couldn't take advantage of those. In the South Lakes and Langley game, Ryan Davenport, who I think is quite a baller, put on a monster show with a 29-point performance. He scored the last 9 Langley Saxon points.
All right, and speaking of someone who's been the baller in this region for quite some time, for a lack of better words, let's talk a little bit about Coach Wendell Bird. I got a chance to cover his last game. They lost in the region tournament, as we'll show you later in our bracket. But I want to show the folks at home what Coach Wendell Bird has meant to this region. I talked to Coach Doug Ewell after his team took out South Lakes in the first round of the region. He said, I was watching NASCAR the other day, and I felt a little bit like Kevin Harvick. You know, everyone was going to hate me for winning, but, you know, you got to do what you got to do. And he took out Coach Wendell Bird, and that's it for Coach. After 23 years, Coach Wendell Bird, and as Coach Doug Ewell said, has been the bar. That's what everyone wants to be, and not just for black coaches, but for all coaches in the Northern Region. And I think that says a lot about what Coach Bird has been able to do for 23 seasons. Let's show the folks at home his accomplishments, and this is just statistical accomplishments. There's a photo from about 20 years ago of Coach Bird. Those of you that know him now know he's probably lost a little bit of hair, but has gained a whole lot of love from the region. His record is 441 and 133 overall, just an incredible accomplishment. 6 region titles, and you see when he won those in 89, 92, 93, and 94. That's 3 years back to back to back. And in 99 and 2003, 12 district titles. And remember, some of those were won when they were playing in the Great Falls District, when Grant Hill was still around and all those greats, all those Jerome Scotts and those guys that just make up a great part of Reston's history. Never won the big one, Coach Bird, but got 2 state runners-up, and he wouldn't have it any other way because of all the things that he learned along the way. And this Northern Region will certainly miss Coach Bird and his class. Let's move on, guys, and jump right into the Patriot District for boys. I want to show the folks at home who has been the class of the region this year, and that, John Marcario, is who?
The T.C. Williams Titans. They steamrolled through the Patriot District. We'll go down the bracket, though. They beat Lee in the first round. South County was upset a little bit by West Potomac. They were looking to win their first ever district tournament game. Fell a little bit short, lost by 9. West Springfield could be another Cinderella with a little asterisk next to it, or Cinderella 2. They beat Annandale, and Lake Braddock beat Hayfield. In the semifinals, TC completely rolled through West Potomac, and West Springfield fell to Lake Braddock. And in the championship game, for the third time this year, the Bruins tried to slow it down, run that four-corner offense. They didn't have the legs in the fourth quarter, and they lost the Titans 60-43.
Okay, and looking at this TC Williams team, this is a team that is so far has advanced into the region tournament, and it's the team that everybody thinks is the best shot for the Northern region to win its first state title in 26 years. Herndon got pretty close last year, but there's a team that's going to be taking on the Titans guys in a team in Chantilly, Paul, a team that you've gotten a chance to cover quite a bit. We want to welcome Coach Jim Smith to the show of Chantilly, coaching what we believe to be the Northern region's current Cinderella. Coach, how do you like that label?
I tell you what, we're just glad to be playing right now, so we'll gladly take any label you give us.
Well, speaking of labels and phrases that have been coined for quite some time during the football season, the words 0-10 were very familiar around Chantilly and surrounding the football team that went to the state title game. You have a lot of those guys that are on your team currently. Do you think that they have some of that postseason prowess that might help you guys break through a tough team in a TC Williams team?
Well, you know, we'll see. TC is an outstanding team, but I think those guys like Nathan and Austin really they bring a lot to us. They bring leadership. They bring a great understanding of what it takes to be successful, and we've really been pleased with what they've done for us this year.
Now, Coach, I talked to you a little bit about Justin May. He's a kid that might not get the kind of press that someone like Ben Wheeler or Austin Decker or Nate Warwick get, but Justin scoring 17 points all in the second half against Langley, and then scoring 9 points against West Potomac. And he's only a sophomore. He's a kid that's really been stepping up for you this year.
Justin's had a sensational year for us. He's second team all district, so I think the word is very efficient in what he does. There'll be lots of games we'll look at the stat sheet, and he'll have 14, 15 points, 9 or 10 shots. Finally, he had 17 points and 8 assists in the second half. I mean, he, just made good things happen with the ball.
It looks like we're having some technical difficulties hearing you, Coach, a little bit. Let's try to get back on track here. I don't know if you can hear us, but talk a little bit about what Ben Wheeler has meant to the team this year as well. He's kind of a go-to guy.
Ben Wheeler's had a great senior year for us this year. He's a third-year starter. He's one of our captains. Excellent shooter of the ball. He's a guy we look to at critical times to hit shots, and we've really been fortunate to have guys like Ben and Nathan step up for us as seniors.
Well, hey, Coach, we want to wish you the best of luck in the Northern Region Tournament. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report. I know you got a tough game taking on those Titans, and we'll be there at the Patriot Center to watch the Chargers. Thanks so much, Coach.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Coach.
Now you look at a team like Chantilly. They're a team that had a couple, in the beginning of the season, had a rough time with all those football players, and then they had to start gelling as a team.
Right.
And there was a point midway in the season when that happened, when Coach said, we played the entire game on offense, on defense, all sides of the ball. We were just clicking. And as you can see, it's happening again in this region tournament, is they're clicking. With someone like Justin May, who, when you think of Chantilly, you're thinking of Ben Wheeler, obviously. You're thinking of Austin Decker and Nate Warwick in the middle there. But Justin May has come on strong. I think Coach said he's second or leads the team in scoring. And as a sophomore, that's got to help out a lot. And one thing to note is Chantilly is the only team left in the Concord district that's playing in the region tournament. So that's definitely a huge honor for Chantilly.
And you would think of the Concord district when you think of teams like a Herndon, like a Westfield. We talked about the upsets that have happened, and we're going to get to that when we get to our Northern Region bracket, Paul. But Chantilly, out of all those teams still in the Northern Region Tournament, that says something about that team. Also want to give it up for Coach Jim Smith, who's got 300 wins this season.
Got his 300th win this season. One thing, it feels like deja vu. What were we talking about in football? We were talking about Westfield. In the beginning of the year, we were talking about Centerville. Look who came out, Chantilly.
And speaking of, let's show the folks at home how Chantilly got to this point. Let's show the Concord District bracket. I was at the Concord District final, Paul, and might I say, Herndon versus Westfield was the biggest blowout I have ever seen doing this job. It was a 77-42 final. Westfield taken out Chantilly taken out by Westfield, but still advanced to the region tournament.
What you can see is the same thing that happened with the Westfield girls. They could not get by Oakton. And in the boys, Westfield could not beat Herndon. We showed a graphic earlier on in the month saying that showing Westfield's performance against Herndon, they just can't get it done against the Hornets. We'll show you how Herndon got there. They had a bye because they were the #1 seed in the 7-team Concord. Had a bye, and when Robinson beat Oakton, so Herndon and Robinson played. Herndon advanced. Chantilly and Centerville. Chantilly beat Centerville to make it a Chantilly sweep over Centerville boys and girls in that first round.
Wow.
And they took on Westfield, losing to Westfield. And so Westfield taking on Fairfax, beating Chantilly to make it to the final. You can see there Chantilly losing in the semifinals. As we said, they are the only team left in the region tournament from the Concord district.
And why is Herndon not in the Northern Region Tournament still, guys? Let's show you the National District bracket. We'll jump right into it, and we're going to show you the nemesis of the Hornets, who went all the way to the Hornets' Nest, one of the hardest places to play in the Northern Region, John, that Wakefield team that didn't even make it into the National District Final.
Well, all season long, Edison and Wakefield have been at the top, 1-2 in the National District. Yorktown's been kind of sitting there as the 4 seed, slight dark horse. Well, bam, they are your National District Tournament champions. As the tournament goes, Edison and Mount Vernon, Yorktown and Wakefield advance to the semifinals. Edison beat Mount Vernon in their semifinals. Yorktown with the upset of Wakefield. That was Wakefield's 3rd loss in 4 games. You'd think not a good way to go into the regional tournament, but we'll wait and see. And in the championship game, Yorktown jumped out to an 18-point lead against Edison. The Eagles came back, tied it going into the 3rd quarter. In the 4th quarter, Edison scored no points the first 6 minutes of the quarter, could not recover, and ended up losing the game 57-52.
All right, and before we break into our Northern Region boys bracket, guys, take a look back at some of these district brackets that we've discussed so far. And you think about a team like a Herndon who steamrolled through a Westfield in the final. Then they go into the region tournament, barely get by a Robinson, and then in the Concord District tournament, barely get by a Robinson, make it to the final, steamroll Westfield, and then get into the region tournament, and then they falter against a team like a Wakefield coming out of that district. Now, my question to you is, it's always been this balance of power in the Northern Region. It's been Liberty basketball, Concord basketball, and then maybe everybody else. What do you think the balance of power is now that you see some of these upsets?
It's very interesting to see. Herndon has lost 3 games this year, and 2 of their 3 losses this year were to National District teams. They lost to Edison, and they lost to Wakefield. Very interesting. Wakefield advancing to the regional semifinals. It's a sign. Edison, prior to this year, advanced to the quarterfinals 3 of the past 4 years. Yorktown making the regions this year. It's the Nationals starting to make some noise with a core group of 3 teams that have caused some serious problems for other teams around the Northern Region.
And you mentioned, John, one bit of news coming out of the National District as you got a chance to get some of that news. Why don't you clue us in as to some of the hot news coming out of the National District?
Edison Eagles head coach Franklin McMillan was not a happy camper after his team lost and seriously questioned whether he would be back next year. His exact quote was, "It's up in the air whether he will return next year." He was not happy with the effort his team put forth. He said some of the kids simply didn't take the game seriously. He called it just a lack of true, sincere effort. He came from a school down in Richmond where he's used to winning, led a team to a state title game in 2002, won 20 games between 2001 and 2004, has won back-to-back 20-win seasons at Edison. It could be an interesting coaching job, but it's an interesting time to bring that up right after your team loses in the first round.
And if you want to read all about John's story on Coach Frank McMillan potentially stepping down at Edison, you can go to connectionnewspapers.com. Let's bust right into this Northern Region bracket, guys. This is what we've been talking about and promoting this whole time, and this is really what it's all about. If you look at the top half of the Northern Region boys bracket, there it is, folks. Number 1 seeded Herndon, the returning Northern Region champions, upset by a National District bottom seed. Wakefield comes in to the Hornets' Nest and takes out Herndon 77-71. And you look at a team like that, they've got George Johnson and Ty Beal both scoring over 20 points to lead Wakefield by Herndon. Danny Jones of Herndon, the Concord District Player of the Year, 24 points in the loss. Richard Gore, the Concord District First Teamer and All Defensive Player of the Year, over 20 points. And they still lose, guys, to Wakefield.
Well, and you can see actually at the bottom of that bracket, the Concord District returning the favor to the Liberty District, with Robinson beating the number 1 seeded Woodson Cavaliers to advance to the semifinal round.
Right. And John, right there, T.C. Williams, you see the road that the Patriot District followed, taking out Mount Vernon, and then Mo Hubbard and the Bulldogs, who played a great game against South Lakes, a thriller. Coach Bird's last game in the first round. Hubbard with 15 in that one, played the most inspired I've seen him in quite some time.
One thing I do want to mention about Hubbard is his postseason this year, he's only a junior, he's been playing extremely well with that one hiccup against Herndon,
right,
which it seems like Hubbard has a problem just mentally preparing for Herndon. Had 6 points against Herndon. BC in the Concord District semifinals, 20 points. And then jumping to the region, first round of regionals, 15. Second round of regionals, 17. So he's been playing extremely well in this postseason, and that bodes well for his senior year next year.
Well, we've got so much to talk about still in the region. We're going to come back to this graphic to show you folks at home more about this region tournament. But guys, let's banter a little bit about some of these teams and who did what so far. T.C. Williams taking out Mount Vernon, a 4 seed, taking out a number 2 seed in Westfield, and then taking on Chantilly, a 3 seed. That, guys, all right, let's be honest about Chantilly. Head coach Jim Smith on, want to thank him for joining us. But they take out Langley in the first round, and then they take out West Potomac, who did Chantilly a favor because West Potomac, a number 4 seed, in 3 overtimes, count them, folks, 3 overtimes, takes out Yorktown, the National District's surprise number 1 seed, 53-51, and they take on Chantilly. Chantilly with a 62-47 victory. Big win. Chantilly's steamrolling right now, guys. Going to take on a tough TC team.
I think the major hurdle for Chantilly in the first 2 rounds was that Langley team. You see that number 2 seed, but you're forgetting how strong that Liberty District is. And so that win over Langley was huge. Had a much easier win over West Potomac. I hope that they are prepared for TC, because that's the juggernaut, the only number 1 seed left in the region tournament right now.
John, you and I were both at the T.C. Williams game versus Lake Braddock, one of the Fairfax Sports Network's game of the week when T.C. took on Lake Braddock at Lake Braddock. We mentioned it before on this show. Coach Brian Metris of Lake Braddock probably had the best game plan we've seen against the Titans this year to slow it down. It's something that they used before, and they used it again. Wasn't as successful the second time. Do you think Chantilly might go with some sort of slow-down offense?
I would 100% go with the slow-down offense. T.C. Williams is the highest scoring team in the Northern Region, averaging close to 80 points a game. Lake Braddock lost to them the first time. They played 70-55. They said, all right, we're going to slow it down. Run the 4 corners. In the second game, they lost 52-47, a lot closer. In the third game, it says 60-43. That's because TC scored 9 points in a row in the last minute, went on a huge spurt. That game was in the manageable 6 to 10 time frame or ballpark range. If you can keep it in that range against TC, you have a legit chance. The 2 minor flaws with TC is, number 1, they tend to get a little bit frustrated every now and again. It'll take a lot of jump shots and a lot of 3-pointers. And number 2 is there's a lot of chatter that goes on from the stands. Sometimes the players listen to the chatter and take shots they shouldn't to, and that might get them into a little bit of trouble.
All right, and West Springfield, John, coming out of the Patriot District, those boys have been on a heck of a ride. They take out Edison in the first round, a game that you got to see, and that's where you did your reporting on Coach Frank McMillan.
West Springfield in that game, and I've been on their case all year long saying they haven't been beating teams with winning records. They had only beaten Chantilly 1-5 going into the tournament. They're just playing like a team that has 9 seniors on their roster. Against Edison, they completely controlled that game. They were up by 18 points at the half. In the second half, they made 3 field goals but missed 1 free throw. They were 20 of 21 from the line. For the game, they finished 24 of 25. The co-district player of the year, Kevin Gilday, ended up with 25 points. He was a sparkling 13 of 13 from the free throw line. It was just an incredible game for West Springfield to be able to only score 3 field goals in the second half and be able to beat a team like Edison, who only suffered their second home loss all season long.
Let's show the folks at home that graphic about the Northern Region Tournament and walk you through it one more time on the semifinals games and show you who got where. You see Wakefield takes out Braddock and then Herndon, the biggest upset, I believe, in this Northern Region Tournament thus far. Then you see West Springfield takes out Edison, another big upset, a 3 taking out a 2, but that's why basketball is so beautiful, guys. And then you see Robinson, a team that gave Herndon a fit in the semifinals of the Concord District Tournament. Herndon almost didn't even advance to the Concord Finals. They would have made the region bracket, but Danny Jones, Concord District Player of the Year, hits a 3 at the buzzer to take Robinson out of it and put them in as a 4 seed, first time since 2001 that the Rams come in. And John, they take out a number 1 seed from the Liberty in Woodson, where Zach Wilmot, Steve Silverthorne really believed that they were going to bring that team back to the Patriot Center and finish what they started years ago.
You could argue that the Herndon-Wakefield game is the biggest upset. In my opinion, the Robinson over Woodson is probably the biggest upset so far in the Northern Region. All postseason long and all towards the latter season, Zach Wilmot has been saying, me and Stevie are going to get back to the Patriot Center and finish the job that we didn't finish 2 years ago where they made it to the region finals and didn't win. They lose to a Robinson team that has had an outstanding year. Coach Matt McCaig should be complimented, should be patted on the back, given a big bear hug. He took a team that won 5 total games the past 2 seasons to 12 wins this season, along with a district tournament win, along with making it to the regional tournament and winning a game. There is no reason for Woodson to lose that basketball game with seniors such as Wilmot, such as Silverthorne in the starting lineup. Big surprise right there, especially at home, seeing their last home loss was to Lake Braddock early in the year.
I think you touched on a really good point. They were talking about going to the Patriot Center. They're talking about playing in the finals. I think they probably look past a team like Robinson. They see that Concord 4 next to Robinson's name, and I'm a huge fan of the Rams. I've been saying to both of you guys, love Ryan McPherson. I think they are an extremely good team coming from the Concord, and that's something that is surprising.
And guys, let's throw up that bottom half of the bracket to show the folks at home who's done what in the bottom half again and what the semifinals matchups are. We talked to Coach Jim Smith of Chantilly taking on a T.C. Williams. T.C. Williams got by Westfield and also Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon out of the National District was really a scary team, 16-8, the 66% winning percentage this year. Just a crazy team that really shows you the depth in this region and what these brackets really mean when it breaks down. This is a team that really, in T.C. Williams, shows that it is diverse in its amount of wins. It can take out a Mount Vernon. It can take out a Westfield, 2 totally different kinds of teams. And then you look at Chantilly, gets by a Langley. That's a scary game for a Chantilly.
Definitely.
And then a West Potomac, also another potentially scary team, taking on a team like a West Potomac that's on a roll, Paul.
We mentioned this Langley team. They definitely have the talent. What's so surprising, this Chantilly team, they definitely have the talent. What they also have is they know how to win. They know how to be in those high-pressure games from someone like Nate Warwick, someone like Austin Decker, and with the talent of someone like Ben Wheeler, they have the mental mindset to be mentally prepared and to go into these maybe away games where the crowd's yelling at them. They play in the Concord. They know the crowds are going to yell. Then they can stay focused and win those close games.
All right, speaking of being focused, let's focus the folks at home into another direction. We want to show them the all-region team for boys. Let's show them the ballers, if you will, from this northern region. Player of the year could be a surprise to some people. Mike Davis from T.C. Williams transferred from Hayfield and was a co-player of the year in the Patriot District, yet is the single player of the year in the region. So, not a surprise to us writers that's seen him play, but it was a surprise for him to be a co-player of the year in the district. Not a surprise to see Coach Ivan Thomas as the coach of the year. This is a team that has been pretty much flawless for 2 years in the northern region. The streak has been upped. They won't talk about the streak. We had Coach Ivan Thomas on this show. Wouldn't tell us about the streak, but the streak is a winning streak against region opponents. Danny Jones was used to winning streaks until this year. 32-game winning streak with the Hornets was snapped early in the season by Edison, John, and Kevin Kilday, an all-region player right there from West Springfield.
He was your other co-district player of the year, along with Mike Davis of T.C. Williams. There's George Johnson from Wakefield on the list. He is leading that team to the Northern Region semifinals.
Johnson's a guy that scored over 20 points in the team's win over Herndon, so really earning that spot on the first team all-region. These are, of course, done before going into the tournament, but really made a name for himself and Ty Beal, his teammate, going in to the Northern Region tournament. John, Zach Wilmot, a player you've seen all year.
Zach Wilmot, he deserved to be on that list. He carried the Cavaliers to the region tournament. He scored in their last game they played 24 points, had 11 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals. He filled up the box score. The Cavaliers just couldn't get it done in that game against Robinson.
And Jamari Davis from Edison rounding out the top 5, your starting 5, if you will, for the Northern Region first team. If you want to get more information about these players, the Northern Region tournament, or any of these games, us guys have been around to all these games, and we've seen all these players and seen all the action and all the games we talked about tonight on ConnectionNewspapers.com. Guys, in the semifinals, it's time to make your picks.
Oh, no.
Okay? This is where you put your money where your mouth is,
Break out the
per
bracket.
se. Let's start in the top half of the Northern Region boys tournament. Wakefield taking on a West Springfield. That's a game that I believe could go either way. John, Wakefield, or West Springfield?
Two teams with very similar. They have benches that aren't very deep, very senior laden. I've been on West Springfield's case all year long, like I've said. I'm going to stop with that. You have 9 seniors. They're hungry. Kilday wants it. I'm going to go with West Springfield over Wakefield.
Okay, Paul, same question. Wakefield, West Springfield, who comes out?
I think the answer lies in, and will also lie in what I say in the bottom half. I think the Patriot District is the strongest district in the Northern Region. I'm gonna go with the Patriots. I'm gonna go with West Springfield.
So an all-Patriot final at the Patriot
No,
Center.
now that's just destiny.
I think I know how you think, young man. Okay, so then you're going to look to T.C. Williams to take out Chantilly, and you're also going to look at West Springfield to advance past Wakefield.
Love Chantilly. Been covering them all year, but TC is the team to beat.
Okay, my pick for the region boys out of the top half, Wakefield vying for its 3rd region title under Coach Tony Bentley. This team, folks, if you remember, if you're a Northern Region fan, went on a heck of a run a couple of years back. It was kind of a dream season for them, and they could be trying to repeat some magic out of that area over in Arlington. So that's where the ballers ball, guys, and I'm going to stick with that Wakefield team. They're on a roll. That's hard to stop a team like that. West Springfield, I believe, got by an Edison team and took out a Robinson team that, well, maybe they had an easier road is what I'm trying to say. I think if you go to the Hornet's Nest and you take out Herndon, you've got my respect. So Wakefield and T.C. Williams, I don't think anybody questions the Titans going to be victorious in that game. Chantilly enters that as one of the biggest underdogs in any situation we've seen as of recent in the Northern Region.
Don't be surprised if it's a great game. Definitely go out on Friday to check out that game because I know the Chargers are going to bring their A game.
All right, I hope so. I think a lot of people will be surprised. But hey, Mike Davis for T.C. Williams is a guy that is just tough to beat on the inside.
Okay.
But I think there's some things that a coach like Jim Smith, who's got 300 wins, could do to get that team in contention.
Don't get me wrong. I think it's going to be TC, but I love those Chargers, and I think they're going to make it a game. Trust me on that.
All right, we'll see. The competitive edge, as we talked to Coach Jim Smith about, is those football players, and I know that it's a totally different sport, but these guys have some postseason experience. Let's jump back in for just a moment to make our picks. The Northern Region girls bracket. John, who's coming out of the top half of the Northern Region for girls? Will it be Oakton or Marshall?
I'm going to go with the upset, and I'm going to say the Statesmen are going to take out the Cougars.
Wow.
They have,
Is this the same guy that told me that Lee was going to beat Oakton at home?
This was, yeah.
Okay, just
the Statesmen, they have size on inside. You mentioned they had 2 players, 6'2". They have a third that gets the rebounds.
Right.
They have Nicole Harrison, and they have that switch.
Yeah.
And if they fall behind, they're not going to get worried, and they're not going to panic. And that's very key this time of the year. They also make their free throws. If you can make your free throws, get second chance opportunities on the offensive glass. If they can quasi-contain Jasmine or just let her go off and contain everybody else, I think they're going to win that one.
Paul, Oakton, Marshall, T.C. Edison.
Okay, it's no question. By the way, you can't contain Jasmine.
Quasi.
There's no quasi involved. It's Oakton, it's Edison in the game of the year.
All right, I may surprise some people with what I'm about to say because I've been such an Oakton, I don't want to say fan or supporter, but I've seen Oakton quite a bit. I love what Jasmine Thomas has been able to do this year with that team. I will not go as far as saying that Marshall will beat Oakton, but I will say that I believe Marshall will be a tougher game for Oakton than Edison. And the reason I say that is because the pressure's off when you're in the region final. You don't have to win that game. You're still going to the promised land. You're still going to the state tournament. Oakton will have a tougher time with Marshall because Marshall is more balanced. I believe Marshall is the most balanced #1 seed coming into this tournament. Tierra Ruffin Pratt runs TC, Jasmine runs Oakton, and Dorina runs Edison. But you have a bunch of no-name girls that really run that Marshall squad, guys. All right, before we get going, folks, we want to show you when this Fairfax Sports Network will be running some of its recent programming. Of course, we're talking about the FSN Game of the Week. The Northern Region Championship will be on demand. And then you're talking about this week on Channel 10, Paul. When was it taped and who will be playing?
It was taped on February 9th,
There you go.
2007. I was ready for you. It was W.T. Woodson against Madison, taped on February 9th.
All right, and that one's going to replay on Cox Channel 10. And also, folks, to note at home, these are all available on demand, all the games that you've seen our crew at. Hey, we're on the web, www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Beautiful bios and pictures of all of us strapping young gentlemen.
Of course.
Want to thank our teammate, CCI Screen Printing. The CCI Screen Printing at 703-978-0257. And Quality Care Ford Service Center, which services all makes and models at 703-383-6299. I want to thank you folks at home for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report for our Northern Region Bracket Breakdown Bonanza Festival, bracketology,
Alliteration
science.
is so fun.
And how's your back doing? Did you bend your knees picking up all that knowledge?
Dropping some knowledge.
I like it. I like it. Good. Oh, you're so far.